Hey guys, so we're going to do a reading today. We're going to do the case of Sarah Hartfield and her husband. I'm going to go ahead and read an article here. Now, this case has been going on for, well, okay, there's another husband in there. We'll talk about it in a minute. Hopefully, it brings it up in the article. It just kind of popped up on my radar. It's a case that begins this week. They've already selected a jury. We're going to be reading on the trial. And so, one of the things we're going to kind of look at, is she guilty of killing husbands? What is going on? This is a woman who had 5 husbands, and she was married to the most recent, the one she is going to trial for murder. She had been married to him less than a year. So let's read this article from NBC News. Hopefully it's good enough. Murder trial opens for woman accused of husband's death years after another partner was killed. Now, apparently there is a self-defense, supposedly one. We're going to talk about that. Very interesting. So, the trial of a Texas woman with a grim, this is NBC, with a grim relationship history got underway Monday in a courtroom near Houston in connection with allegations that she killed her most recent husband with a fatal dose of insulin. A jury of 4 women and 8 men, now it's kind of interesting, there's not very many women on there, but was selected for the trial of Sarah Hartsfield, a former U.S. Army sergeant, sucks she's military, who has been married 5 times. That's a lot of husbands, guys. Okay? And whose third husband previously accused her of asking her 4th husband to kill his new wife. Okay? Okay? She is charged with 1 count of murder in the January 2023 death of Joseph Hartsfield, 46. She is pled not guilty. More on Sarah Hartsfield. After 5-time bride is charged with husband's murder, other deaths get a fresh look. So they were like, let's go back. Okay. Sarah Hartsfield marriages and romances often ended under grim circumstances. Murder suspect's son has been waiting for his mom's arrest his whole life. Okay, Hartsfield fatally shot her fiance in 2018. So in 2018, there's that. Okay, but it was considered apparently self-defense. So Sarah Hartsfield, 50, has admitted to fatally shooting another romantic partner, a former fiance, in self-defense in Minnesota in 2018. Okay, so it wasn't a husband. She was cleared of wrongdoing, but a local prosecutor said he was re-examining the case after she was indicted on the murder charge in Joseph Hartsfield's death. So they're looking at that again. They're taking up little peekaboo at that. The status of that inquiry is unclear. The prosecutor, Chad Larson, did not respond to a request for comment. Speaking outside of the Chambers County Courthouse Monday, the sheriff whose office handled the investigation into Joseph Hartsfield death said that Sarah Hartsfield is not that kind, sleepy little person she makes herself out to be. Okay, and then it says, quote, you could just look at her overall history and you can tell there's a very evil side to her, Chambers County Sheriff Brian Hawthorne told reporters. Opening statements in the Chambers County trial are expected to begin Tuesday. Trial could last 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, so this is coming up. So we're going to try to predict how this goes. Sarah Hartsfield lawyers did not respond to requests for comment. A previous lawyer, Keaton Kurtwood, said that she maintains her innocence and planned to assist the investigation into her husband's untimely death. We adamantly denounce misinformation that has been provided the public regarding the past and everything. And then an insulin, let's just skip a little bit here, an insulin overdose. This is the crux of it. Joseph and Sarah Hartsfield had been married for 11 months, so not even a year, guys, when he was hospitalized on January 7, 2023, with what a nurse described as a life-threatening illness, according to an affidavit in support of a search warrant. He was diabetic and was admitted to a hospital east of Houston with low blood sugar, but he didn't respond to glucose and his blood sugar kept crashing, the affidavit says. The nurse suspected insulin, the life-saving drug that can double as a difficult-to-detect murder weapon, may have been to blame for his condition. At the hospital, Joseph Hartsfield's family told authorities that he'd recently returned to his hometown, opened a new bank account, and planned to divorce his wife. Bingo, that's a huge one. Okay, so he was already, he realized he made a mistake. He's, with family, he's he's getting all this done. Okay. And stop. He was concerned for his safety, thinking Sarah might try to kill him, the affidavit says. So he'd already expressed this. Facebook messages that Sarah Hartsfield sent a friend weeks before his hospitalization show her disparaging her husband. "I've paid for everything to the point I have nothing left," she wrote in the messages with a friend shared with NBC News. "He was just looking for a meal ticket and way back to a lifestyle he could never attain on his own." Joseph Hartsfield was pronounced dead on January 15, according to the Harris County Institute of Forensic Sciences. The nurse's suspicion was later confirmed by the Institute, which concluded he died complications of toxic effects of insulin. His manner of death is listed as undetermined. Hartsfield testified in a March 2023 bond hearing that her husband died from a stroke that resulted from a 100% clogged artery, a transcript shows. So, and then let's go to this, and then we'll get to the reading. Beyonce fatally shot. Hartsfield testified at the bond hearing that she shot her former partner, David Bragg, in 2018 after he became upset about her third husband coming to town to see the children. The couple, who were briefly engaged, had moved to Minnesota a few months before after meeting Fort Hood. Okay. As up during the hearing, Hartsfield testified that she took the beating of my life for letting my child see her father. She said she dove to the floor and blindly fired after Bragg threatened to shoot her. "I didn't aim," she testified. "It was just an automatic response." Now remember, she's military. Okay. The Douglas County attorney, who later reopened the investigation into Bragg's death, concluded in 2019 that Sarah Hartsfield had no reasonable possibility of retreating. Bragg's family described the circumstances surrounding his death as far-fetched and almost made up. And then an alleged murder plot. 2 years later, the third husband, Christopher Donahoe, sought a protection order against Sarah Hartsfield. In an affidavit in support of the order, Donahoe alleged that Sarah Hartsfield's fourth husband told him she'd been pushing him for months to kill Donahoe's new wife. She'd given her fourth husband, David George, a pistol to carry out the act and wouldn't let him come home until he'd done so. In an interview with Dateline, George said he had no intention of following through with the alleged plot during the bond hearing. In her fifth husband's death, Hartsfield said George made a full retraction of the claim that she pressured him to carry out the shooting, which she said made for retaliation purposes. She has not been charged with a crime in alleged plot. So it's all kinds of stuff. So, whole lot of stuff going on with this one. Okay, I fatally shot a fiance, and now she's up for murder of her husband of less than a year. Let's go ahead and read the cards. How is this going to go? Now, I'm not going to read the crime deck until after to determine there is a crime. Okay, we first have to, I know there's a lot of suspicion, but first we got to determine there is a crime. But we're looking at a trial first. Okay. Crazy. All right, let's cut the deck. Check it out. What do we got? What's the very first card? Okay, so the Ace of Wands can be my card about opportunity. Okay, can be a big thing when I'm reading a murder trial. That somehow she had this opportunity to be able to commit the crime and stuff. It looks like it was pretty easy. Okay, so let's go and see. But there is failure and stuff. She thought that insulin overdose, get away with it, take the opportunity, whatnot, not a problem, but it failed. We've got the failure card here. It did not work out. So it doesn't appear to be, at least for the most part, as I'm beginning about money or anything like that. This doesn't seem to be the intent and stuff like that. Six of Swords is popping up in here, which does seem to corroborate that the last husband, the fifth husband that the case centers around, was going to move away. He was going to leave his wife. So this energy is here. She already thinks he's hustling her for money, but he's wanting out and stuff like that and everything. Yep, he's definitely taking action to move out with this Knight of Wands energy. It looks like they had a lot of arguments, and there is a temper involved here. I knew for her I would see the Queen of Swords. I'm reading a murder trial. Queen of Swords can come up sometimes. She's got the sword, but she's got the head in hand, you know, taking lives. Okay, so I feel really, when I kind of look at it, I don't think it's as much he thought he was robbing her, but the fact that he wanted out and he was going to move out and he was trying to, you know, salvage his own money. Now, was he trying to get away with some of her money? Maybe that's part of a bank account or something. Maybe possible. Maybe she sent something like that. But he was definitely on his way, planning to move out. Six of Swords can be my moving out card and stuff like that. And she got away with it for a little while. You know, we do see that. Yeah, we definitely got that moving on energy and stuff. Yeah, stab in the back, betrayal, lies, deceit. We've got that. And it is called futility in the Thoth deck. Seven of Swords energy. So she is definitely backstabbed, sneaky, hiding evidence, that type of energy. Let's kind of go ahead and see and stuff. And Knight of Swords energy. This seems to be bringing up the other one, the one that she took out and stuff. It looks like that person, I do get they were a violent person. Okay, this wasn't an innocent thing, but still. And stuff like that and everything. And actually, there may have been another woman with that one, because I do have a Queen of Cups popping up in there. Oh, no, actually, no, let me correct. The Queen of Cups is the one that, remember, she said she wanted to take out another person. There is that as well, but that was foiled. Let's see what overlaps all of that and stuff and everything. Now, that's interesting. I get the Knight of Cups and stuff. So, you know, be able to take out the one husband got wish, but did not necessarily get it with the one woman. Okay, so let's kind of go and see. This was hung up for a couple years. We do see that, but it is getting unhung up. Let's look at her position. What do we get? Yeah, a lot of mourning and loss. She's been a widow. Okay, we've got that, you know, the disappointment energy that she's got there. And let's kind of go ahead and see. And stop. Looking at Prince of Swords energy, yeah, there's definitely a violent energy there. And let me kind of go ahead and see and stop. Planning and thought out and premeditation. Four of Swords. Okay, and everything. And I wonder if there's some children involved there. I've got that Princess of Cups energy there. I feel there might be a daughter involved. You guys can let me know. I've only read the article and looked at maybe 3 minutes of 2 videos and stuff. It's going to be kind of a long drawn out trial. They said a few weeks. It could go longer and stuff like that. It will wrap up this time. And I feel like there'll be another case to come and everything like that. Yeah, there's that lust energy. You know, there's, you know, I definitely get this is somebody that is not a good savory person and stuff. There may have been cheating involved on these husbands and all kinds of other stuff. This should, yeah, I feel like this is going to wrap up in the Scorpio month. We've got the Prince of Cups energy and so forth like that. I see that futility, her not getting away with it. And let's go, yeah, I would like to go to Kipper. This could be a pretty good deck for certain things. Yeah, there was definitely some kind of change in there while he was planning to move out and stuff. Yeah, she might have had some life insurance on there, but I don't feel it's the core reason. I got that card Thief. Okay, so she, you know, this thing about what she said to a friend, this husband taking from her. Okay, she does feel like, at least in her eyes, she feels he was taken from her, taking her money and her resources. They were lovers, of course. They were obviously married and stuff like that. But he was in despair. I've got the despair card here. He was ready to want out and stuff like that and everything. But yeah, there's set in wealth card. So it does feel like it's not as much about getting money on a life insurance, but him not taking her money. He was going to move out. I've got the journey card. He had plans. I feel she somehow came aware of his plans that he was going to move out and get out of there and stuff. So I do feel there's a lot of evidence here. Some of it's a little semi-circumstantial, but there's a lot of good evidence here and everything. So let's go ahead and see. You know, now that we've kind of determined that this is not accidental, there's definitely backstabbing here and frustration with the money and stuff. It actually says perpetrator has behavioral patterns of a serial killer. Now, considering there is this kind of black widow energy in her relationships, that makes sense why that would be there. Multiple people and stuff. Now, I think the multiple people is popping up in there because she tried to engage somebody into the killing of the one guy's wife. Okay, so that's, you know, there are some things. Cell phone records, maybe talking to people and stuff may provide some clues and stuff. Now, I think we're going back to the one, okay, says killer sustained a wound during murder. I think we're going back to the prior one. We've got two on the table here. Obviously, with the insulin one, she didn't sustain a wound, but the prior one, so it does seem that there was, you know, an assault and everything. And then we'll go to the final one. Details leading up to the murder may be worth investigating, of course. Yes. So in my assessment and everything, there does seem to be some validity there. For whatever reason, she feels like that he wants to get, this is what it looks like. She gets kind of wind that he wants to get away. Okay, he wants to move out. That's clearly what's showing with the Six of Swords. She's getting the, he's gonna leave me, but he's gonna try to take from me. He's gonna take my stuff, divorce this, that, whatever, and try to take half my shit. So she feels that is, she knew he's a foot out the door. He's got a plan. She became aware of it, and then we have this weird thing with the insulin habits. Okay, however she pulled that off. I do feel something's going to come up with the other one, though, and everything, the old self-defense, but that may be a long ways away. But this here looks like, yeah, there's definitely the one thing with the Seven of Swords, it is also futility and so forth, so I do not see her getting away with it. All right, you guys. Yeah, it looks like, yeah, she knew he was going, and he was going to take her shit. Hope this helps.